Where's the ding? There's the ding. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, James.
Who are we?
We are Leftist Lens.
We are.
It's our first episode of 2025.
Oh my God, I didn't even realize that.
Which is going to be an interesting year, I think.
I think
we're going to tell you about it. Every week, we're going to tell you about how interesting it is.
The first month is going to be probably the worst. January is not going to end well.
No, it's not.
But you know what could make it end better?
What's that, James?
Why is it foggy? Is it focused? Focus, you son of a bitch.
It focuses if you hold it still.
There you go. All right, so here's my quick anecdotal story. I used to take lion's mane and cordyceps mushroom gummies for a long time, and I am damaged. This stuff in here is all fucked up, and the suggestion came from other people that had taken such things, and these gummies actually helped me. I felt more clear. I felt more alert. I felt more sharp. And I stopped taking them. I did this a couple of times as an experiment, and the times when I got off of them, I felt markedly worse, and the times when I got back on them, I felt markedly better. I was in the middle of another one of these self-designed experiments a couple months ago, so I stopped taking the gummies, and I've been barely functional for a couple of months. And then a friend of mine suggested that coffee, and I'd been skeptical about this because, as you were saying before we started recording, you're concerned about how it would taste. It tastes fine. It tastes just like regular coffee. Now I add it to some Cuban espresso that goes in my coffee maker, and I can tell it's in there because the espresso is not as sharp as it is because my coffee's like super strong. It's in there, and I feel fantastic. I'm not making this shit up. I feel better than I have in weeks, just 2 days on this coffee.
It's not just caffeine, right? Because I drink coffee every morning and can barely function before I have it.
No, because caffeine legit doesn't have that effect on me. I could drink a half a pot of coffee an hour before I get off work at night and come home and go straight to bed and go right to sleep. So caffeine isn't really a thing for me because I drink coffee every morning anyway, and I've still been feeling like shit for the last couple of months. But 2 days on this coffee, and I feel like I felt with the gummies, and this is more affordable than the gummies. The gummies were expensive.
Well, I'm going to give it a shot. They're not a sponsor, by the way. James just wanted to tell us about that.
Yeah, it's 4 Sigmatic. I mean, there's other brands that allege the same thing. I don't have anything to compare it to, but I'm going to hit them up on the Amazon and see if maybe they'd like to partner with us, and I can promote them every fucking time. That probably ruined it right there.
We'll see how progressive they are.
So what do we got on the report for this week?
Well, the new year started off with a terrorist attack, and I will call it that. The new Congress got sworn in. Trump's going to be sentenced in his hush money trial. We're going to talk a lot about that. The inauguration is coming up. We'll talk a little bit about that. And we lost our 37th president. We're going to talk about him.
39th or 37th?
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
let's
39th.
There you go.
Thanks.
So New Orleans is just up the road from me, and I heard about this as it was happening in real time. And
yeah, so I'm pretty sure most of you already know this, but if you didn't know, somebody drove a rented pickup truck through a crowd that was partying on Bourbon Street on New Year's Eve. 15 people were killed, I think. After he drove through the crowd, he got out with a gun and started shooting too. He was deleted by police eventually. Still not sure how the police didn't stop him from driving on there, though. Although I did notice that the mayor, when asked about why they didn't have the barriers that they had bought several years ago at the advisement of a private security firm that recommended these barriers to prevent vehicles from driving on Bourbon Street, the mayor said, oh, I didn't know we had, or no, not the mayor, the police chief said, I didn't know we had those.
See, I find that odd. It's been years since I've been to New Orleans. The last time was back in the mid 90s. And at either end of Bourbon Street, they had those bollards that
yeah, so those installed bollards were in the down position because they're apparently due for some maintenance or something. I don't know. So the mayor was mad that the maintenance wasn't done and that they weren't up in time for New Year's Eve, but they had these non-permanent ones that they bought. They're like L-shaped. And they did not deploy those for whatever reason.
Now he unalived some people through hitting them with his vehicle, but he also had a gun, didn't he?
Yeah, after he ran over as many people as he could, he got out and started shooting.
He's an army. Is it true that he's an Army vet, Texas resident?
Yes. Born and raised in Texas, Houston. He was a real estate guy, and you can find videos of him promoting his real estate business. And he starts every video with, I'm born and raised in Houston. And he talks like a Texan. Even after that was known that he was born and raised in Texas, the president-elect decided to blame immigrants for that attack still. So,
of course he did.
And I stopped paying attention to his the people that are influenced by him. I stopped paying attention. I'm not on TikTok as much because TikTok started showing me more of that. I don't know if that's happened to you. But started showing me more of that. Twitter's full of that. I'm not on Twitter as much anymore. So I don't know if the supporters are blaming immigrants or if it was just him, but he wasn't an immigrant. He was an American Army veteran.
Yeah, I haven't seen too many because I'm still wading in the muck in TikTok, and I haven't seen too much out there with his venomous supporters jumping on the blaming immigrants train for this. So I don't think that stuck very well. Thankfully.
Yeah.
But
well, anyway, he made a video before the attack saying he was inspired by ISIS. ISIS, if you didn't know, that was the group that they started the revolution that recently ended in Syria. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. There was an ISIS flag on his truck. And I don't really know what the significance is, but a former CIA intelligence analyst went on a podcast and said on December 12th and said that Al-Qaeda was going to be doing attacks in the United States, but convincing us that they were ISIS attacks instead. I don't know what the significance is. What difference does it make which terrorist group is perpetrating the attacks, unless you're trying to focus the retaliation on someone else, I guess.
If these groups were strategizing this to that level of minutia, then yeah, that's what it's about for them. But to us, it doesn't make any difference.
No, but what is alarming is on that same podcast. Now, again, this was on December 12th, before that attack happened. She also said that Al-Qaeda had developed a suicide vest that does not set off magnetometers, so you can take it through a metal detector. If that's true, that's alarming. And I don't know how she would know this stuff if she's a former CIA intelligence analyst. You know what I mean? I don't know how she would know that. So I don't know.
Well, I can tell you what would stop a lot of these people from trying to commit the acts that they're trying to commit is if we stopped fucking our imperialist colonial practices around the world and started treating other countries the way they deserve to be treated.
That's true.
This isn't. It might sound like I'm saying we've earned these comeuppance. Fuck it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to mince words.
Sean Piker would agree with you. He said that about 9/11.
Man, I tell you what, the callback to 9/11 is that on that day when that shit happened, I worked as a therapist up in Vermont, and I went to a meeting at the local hospital, and the whole world was holding its breath. I mean, I remember clearly myself not knowing, should I get my son out of school? What am I supposed to do in this situation? And I remember going to this meeting at the hospital, and like everybody's like standing around TV monitors, and there was a woman that I passed by who, as I passed by, she said, well, fuck, now we're going to be talking about this for the next 3 months. And I was, it was not what I expected to hear at that moment. And so it threw me into this state of cognitive dissonance about what is she upset about here? And then as I've grown older and I've become more educated on the dynamics of world politics, I understand what she was saying. And we did continue talking about it for months and months and months. But
true. Now, the only issue I have with saying that we had it coming or whatever, the only disagreement I have with that is if we've learned nothing in the last year or so, the American people have no say whatsoever in our foreign policy. None. And so the American civilian, for example, tons of us have made it known that we don't support what's happening in the Middle East, what we are doing in Palestine, right? Mm-hmm. But the government's still doing it. They don't give a fuck what we think. They don't give a fuck what those students that were protesting on campuses across the country thought. They didn't care about the Jewish people that took over the Capitol building to protest. They didn't care about any of that. So attacking us doesn't seem fair. And that's what who terrorists attack. They attack soft targets, civilian targets. So I don't think that's right.
There's more people who are aware and educated on the atrocities that our government commits around the world today than there were 20 years ago. That's
a fact.
Okay, so that we agree on that those numbers are up from what they used to be. When the Israeli atrocities started against Gaza, and there were people like trying to block ships from leaving port that were going to transport arms to Israel and so forth. I mean, I've been an undying advocate for the people in Gaza. But I said at that point, when this all unfolded, I said, everything that we're doing is not going to change a thing. It's not going to slow them down. It's not going to stop. It's not going to save a single life in Gaza. And I tend to say these things at the wrong time because people were not ready to hear that. And so the blowback was what I expected it to be. But you're right when you say it doesn't matter what we value, the government is going to do what is in the interest of the big corporations that are going to benefit from this war. Let me circle this into Biden dropping from the ticket. Why do you think, because this is a back and forth I got into with somebody on one of my recently banned TikTok accounts. Why do you think Biden dropped out? Because one of the pushbacks was support for Israel, that large numbers of people were opposed to Joe Biden being on the ticket due to his support for Israel and the atrocities we were supporting in Gaza. There's also a camp that says it was the economy. There's also a camp that says he was old. I'm so tired of that. Yes, he's old. But why do you think Biden dropped off the ticket?
Because he was convinced that he wasn't going to win. Although he now doesn't believe that. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't.
He now believes that he would have won.
Oh, he's out of his fucking mind. It's just wrong. But the reasons why he thought he wasn't going to win, do you think it's the things that I listed there in terms of support for Israel, the bad economy, his age?
It's all of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people didn't vote at all because they don't like the support of Israel.
Mm-hmm. And that didn't change with Kamala Harris becoming the
Correct.
candidate either.
Correct. And a ton of people voted for Trump because he said he would make groceries cheaper, even though he's now said that he won't. And most of us knew that he wouldn't.
Yeah.
But some people believed him. And I mean, what can you do? The shit is too expensive. The rent is too damn high. Everything is too damn expensive. Wages are not high enough.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are all true. Those things have been true for a long time. And it is worse now, but it's not going to get better under Trump. And it might have gotten slightly better under Harris. Maybe. I don't know.
I lost my train of thought. There was something I was going to say. Oh, the greatest meme that I've seen recently was Luigi exists. Luigi was inevitable because Bernie was our compromise. If they had accepted Bernie as the candidate in 2016, that was our compromise. And since that failed, we got Luigi.
Yeah.
And this is where I know we're going off the rails here with side thoughts, but this is why I think that the Luigi process is the only thing that's going to shake up the system. It isn't going to be a candidate who you support, because any candidate who's revolutionary enough to actually get in there and break this capitalist system is never going to be elected. They're not going to win any elections at a level that would make it possible for them to make change.
Corporations own both parties. The corporations own all the significant media apparatus. There's no way anybody could ever be popular enough to be elected.
So what path forward is there for us other than Luigi? And I'm using that as an adjective.
Talking about a revolution.
Right. And it comes
It's the only thing.
Yeah. And revolutions include violence. And this is another thing that I got into a back and forth with somebody about. Violence is not the answer. I'm not saying violence is the answer. Violence is the tool that will push the political machine in the direction that we want it to go. It's only going to be the threat of violence that motivates that political machine to reset this path. There's no other.
You're 100% right, but I don't have much hope in any of that's going to happen, because what we're going to see in 2025, we're going to see mass protests against the fascist moves that Trump makes.
Mm-hmm.
And you are going to see violence,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to be from the protesters. It's going to be from the state. You're going to see the police violently suppressing those protests across the country.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it before. You're going to see it again. And
the pushback from the people that the law enforcement thugs are going to be targeting, the pushback needs to be on levels that we've never seen in this country before, or haven't seen in generations. We're going to have to push back against the violence that you're implying being perpetrated against us in ways that we haven't pushed back before. We have to outdo them. There's no other.
The only way I see that happening is if stuff gets so expensive from the tariffs and shit and the bad economic management that Republicans are known for, that they become uncomfortable enough that they're willing to take that risk.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way I see that happening. Otherwise, Americans are just too comfortable.
Yeah, when you can't afford to eat, when you can't afford to keep a roof over your family's head, it's only then that we're going to see people click the paradigm shift, and these walls of police that you'll see blocking streets from protesters moving forward will finally be met with overwhelming force from the people they're trying to stop. And it's granted how that unfolds, it doesn't come out shiny and clean and new on the other side of that day, and whatever that looks like. It's going to be a long period of uncertainty. It's going to, and that uncertainty, by the way, is what is going to drive the market in terms of the capitalist market. Capitalism hates uncertainty. And so when you see these actions start to unfold in the streets, hopefully in my lifetime, the market is going to crash. The market is going to crash because of the uncertainty. However, those actions get met by the state, and whatever comes after that, it's going to create massive uncertainty, which is going to crash the market, which is going to lead the corporate overlords to panic. And it's going to be a fucking mess. But we can't keep doing this. That mess is inevitable. That dark period is inevitable if we're going to come out the other side in some way. I don't know that this is ever going to get resolved in my lifetime, but god damn, I'd love to be around for it.
Yeah,
anyway.
Me too. It's also important to note that there is this same level of angst in other countries.
Oh yeah.
And there are already revolutions happening in other countries.
Yeah, and they are the example of what I'm saying our responses to these systems need to look like.
We need to be like Georgia.
Yeah.
The country, not the state.
I saw footage from, I think it was the Georgian protests, where someone in the group of protesters had fabricated a large PVC tube that they had filled with ordnance of some kind that were, let's say, rocket propelled. They were fireworks, but they were big bottle rockets that they basically had a missile launcher, and they were volleying these things at the police that were trying to beat them back. And I'm thinking, god damn, that's brilliant. I won't go into too much more on that because it could be problematic for us, but they are the model for what our protests need to look like, not these ineffectual March on Washington things, which have frankly done nothing.
Correct.
I mean, remember the Million Man March? I think Louis Farrakhan arranged that back in the day. The Million Man March on Washington.
Yeah, it was in 96, 97.
Didn't change a fucking thing.
No
policy changes came from that. And things have gotten progressively worse for that community since that time. So can't keep doing the same fucking thing and expecting a different result. Do the thing, people.
Yeah. You know, I want to tell another just keep going off the rails.
Why not?
Keep going off script. Mr. Global, you follow him on TikTok.
Yeah.
The oil man.
Mm-hmm.
He had a TikTok recently where he explained there was a tweet where people were cheering Biden for banning oil drilling in offshore oil drilling, right? Mm-hmm. That's what the headline said. But what he went through, the actual facts of it, Trump initially banned drilling in these places, and it's places where rich fucks have their mansions and they don't want to look at oil rigs. So that's why Trump banned it. But his ban was only a 10-year ban, and Biden recently decided to make that a permanent ban for those same places. It is not banning existing oil drilling. It doesn't ban any existing leases.
Mm.
It just bans new leases in places where rich fucks don't want to have to look at the oil rigs. So it doesn't actually do anything. And when Trump banned it, he was quiet about it because he knew his base would be like, what are you banning oil drilling for? But when Biden did it, they promoted it as being green, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in really, it's neither of those things. It's just kowtowing to rich assholes. That's all the government ever does.
Yep.
And they will spin it to you
Yep.
however they think you want to hear it to get you to keep them in power.
100%.
The Democrats
There it is.
do it just as much as the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
So use some critical thinking when you're looking at what you're being told by political parties.
Absolutely valid point.
All right, moving on. The new Congress was sworn in the other day. Why is this interesting? I remember watching Kevin McCarthy take 15 or so votes. They just kept voting. He didn't win. They would talk for a little while and vote again. They did it differently this time. They did a vote. Mike Johnson got most of the votes, but not enough to win. 3 Republicans voted against him, which was not enough for him to retain the speakership. But they didn't end the vote. They didn't gavel out the vote. They just left the voting open, even though everybody had voted. And during that time, Donald Trump apparently called at least 2 of those people that voted against Mike Johnson and convinced them to vote for Mike Johnson. Now, if you know anything about Donald Trump, he would have promised them something. Who knows what quid pro quo went on there. But they went up and changed their votes, and then they ended the vote so that Mike Johnson won on the first vote. That's crazy. That's also not right. Congress is supposed to be independent of the presidency. Trump has no business sticking his nose into what is going on in the House of Representatives ever.
Yep.
When it comes to picking who the speaker is.
Yeah, or sending a proxy to do his bidding from outside Congress into the Congress, like Elonia Musk.
Right.
So the three Republicans that voted against Johnson were Thomas Massie of Kentucky, Ralph Norman of South Carolina, and Keith Self of Texas.
Yeah, Massie was all over the news ahead of the vote saying he would never vote for Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
So did he? Which ones changed their vote? Because one of them kept their vote different.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that in. Well, I'll tell you, I don't know which one did, but Ralph Norman of South Carolina voted for Jim Jordan. Fucking idiot. The guy from Texas voted for Byron Donalds from Florida, and Massey voted for Tom Emmer of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
But Johnson eventually won.
Johnson did win, so he retained the speakership. And then in a show of, to me, what is wrong with the Democratic Party, Hakeem Jeffries introduced him as the speaker and gave like one of the most complimentary speeches you could possibly give.
Yeah, I saw that.
Mike Johnson's a piece of shit. Hakeem Jeffries should be able to say that.
Hakeem Jeffries lost all credibility during the early in the campaign because I remember there was a campaign stop, and it was when Biden was still on the ticket, I think. I'm pretty sure. And people were there protesting against Biden. Democrats were protesting against Biden for his involvement in Gaza, specifically, and they were drowning out Hakeem Jeffries, and he basically told the protesters that they need to swallow the bitter pill and deal with it and grow up and da 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 da. So Jeffries is nothing but a capitulating piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, as we head into Trump's second term, it is important to know he literally controls the House.
Mm-hmm.
He tells the House what to do.
It's crazy. There's checks and
Republicans
balances.
control the Senate. I don't think he has as much power over the Senate as he does the House. But he definitely has power over the Supreme Court as well.
Yeah.
This is very scary.
People
There are
don't.
not going to be checks and balances on him like there should be.
And at least 33 million, if not more, Americans see that as a good thing. They have stupidly endorsed totalitarianism in this country. They are on board with it 100%. Tens of millions of people. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're supporting. They literally are just idiots, just flat out fucking idiots who are ushering in this era that we haven't seen ever in this country. We've seen some shit. This is some next level shit, and they love it. They fucking love it. I made a list on Blue Sky last night of when Biden issued these presidential medals of freedom or whatever it was that he did for 15 or so people the other day. I made a list of people that I thought Trump in response is going to, and it wasn't a joke. I'm not fucking kidding, that Trump is going to issue the presidential medal of freedom to before he leaves office. And it included Dylan Roof, the kid who's on federal death row for shooting up the black church. He's going to give him the presidential medal of freedom.
House.
Yeah. Kim Jong-un, Vlad Putin,
Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk, Nick Fuentes. I'm not. It's not even a joke. I can see him doing this because Biden is moving all sorts of chess pieces to try to stifle actions and behaviors of Trump in the next few years. Trump is going to retaliate for those things. He is going to kick up his game to make sure that he has a response to everything that Biden is doing in the present day. It's fucking terrifying.
Now, I said this a couple weeks ago, but I'm just going to reiterate it here. The best place to resist the worst of what Trump is going to do is locally.
Mm-hmm.
Get involved in your local politics. Get your mayor or your town supervisor or your county supervisor or whatever to understand that you will not accept the worst of what Trump might do and that you need to be protected from it. And I'll say this, I got 2 empty bedrooms. If you're worried about getting deported and you want a place to stay, you can come stay at my house.
Yeah, I've got an empty bedroom. I'll offer it up to somebody who's trying to stay away and stay safe from the fuck that's going on.
All right. So in other news, more evidence that the law is not equal. Donald Trump is, after all, going to be sentenced for his hush money trial that he was convicted of, the 34 felonies he was convicted of. He will be sentenced this Friday on January 10th. But we already know what the sentence is going to be. Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nothing. Well, Mershon said he would listen to arguments and keep an open mind, but that he was inclined to give a no conditions discharge of the sentence, which means
you can't convince me that this wasn't a backrooms deal, because this was not on the radar screen. There was no indication that this sentencing was going to happen, and then all of a sudden it's decided it's going to happen this coming Friday. That this was a deal to say, okay, I want to enact this sentencing and close this case, and I want it done before the inauguration. And in exchange for that, I'll give your defendant no jail time. There was a fucking
it's not
deal.
Just no jail time, no fines, no community service, no anything.
Fucking why? Why?
Because the law doesn't matter anymore, James. At least not for some people. Look, here's what should happen. If I'm a lawyer and I have a client that's in jail right now, and they're nonviolent, and they have 34 or fewer felonies, I'm in front of a judge tomorrow saying, let my guy out of jail right now.
Yeah, here's a massive precedent. And then I'm going to be watching so closely the people in social media who are going to be celebrating this And I'm going to ask them point blank, do you think that if you commit crimes and you wind up in front of a judge that you're going to be given this same treatment? Do you think that this is now going to apply to you in your life? Because you're a fucking idiot if you think it will. You're not. You're going to do a hard time when you commit your crimes.
Unless you happen to be like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim Jordan, Elon Musk, one of those people. If you're listening to this podcast, you're fine. Nothing will happen to you either. But
they don't listen to our podcast.
Okay. Trump's having a victory rally the day before the inauguration. What do you think that's about?
What in the fuck?
Hitler had one of those. And I'm not making that up. Hitler literally had one of those in 1933. Rally for victory. 500,000 people attended Hitler's. I doubt that many people will attend Trump's. But there's no doubt in my mind that he's imitated Hitler a lot of times in his first term, and I'm sure that's what he's doing here. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows how many people are going to show up, what they're going to do. They're not going to be trying to stop a vote certification this time. So what the fuck are they doing there?
I'm going to make a prediction, and this ties into a topic we got coming up because the flags are going to be at half-mast because of the passing of Jimmy Carter. During this rally or during the inauguration itself, some MAGA fuck is going to bum rush one of the flagpoles and pull a flag up.
That's possible.
I guarantee it's going to happen. Watch it happen.
Yeah, Trump has already called that a disgrace that the flags are going to be at half mast.
The fact that Trump is speaking about this is the disgrace.
Yep, it is.
It's going to be this whatever this victory rally is. What, a day or two before the inauguration?
It's the day before. It's on the 19th. The inauguration's on the 20th.
It's going to be a fucking shit show, and he's doing this where? In DC. Yeah, it's going to be exactly what you expect it to be. It's going to be as bad as January 6th.
I kind of expect there to be a counter protest that's just as big, and I worry about that a little bit. Yeah. I wouldn't be anywhere near that fucking city on that day. Neither would I. All right, another thing. We were told by some Republicans that are aware of what Trump's first day agenda is, what executive orders he's going to sign, to be prepared for shock and awe, which, if you don't know, that's a term that George Bush made up to describe the war that we were fighting in Iraq.
Yep.
And so we're to expect Trump to go to war with us with shock and awe, I guess.
In the form of executive orders.
Yeah, and he said, this one congressman said, some of these orders are going to take some time to digest. What the fuck does that mean? So I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what executive orders he's going to sign. I assume he's going to sign some that are going to end up getting challenged in court.
I want to point out regarding executive orders, they do not carry the force of law. Executive orders do not carry the force of law. There are things that Trump signed as executive orders in his first term that there was zero mechanism for the law to enforce in any way. These are largely, if these are going to be anything, they are going to be markers for what he does next, for whatever is coming next,
or for what he wants Congress to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that'll be fun to see what orders come down there. Then maybe some of you will realize that you made a big fucking mistake voting for that guy. So here's one I saw. I saw an interview. I feel like, I don't know if it was CNN, NBC, whatever. But a reporter was interviewing a farmer that voted for Trump and asking him about the deportation of undocumented immigrants. And could he operate his farm without the undocumented immigrant labor? Mm-hmm. And he said no. He said if those deportations happen within 2 days, this entire country would run out of food. Then why did you vote for Trump? Was the question. Well, because I don't think he'd be able to do that. Okay, then why the fuck did you vote for Trump?
Yeah, this is the conversation I've had with so many fucking people.
You don't think he's going to be able to do the things he says he's going to do, then what the fuck did you vote for him for? I really don't understand at all. At all.
I mean, the definition of sheep. They will, no matter what he says, no matter what he does, even if they hate what he says, they don't believe what he says, they're still going to support this person. Why? And I'll tell you why. It's because in their head, they've got this script of the demo rats. The demo rats. We've got to stop the demo rats. Even if that means cutting off my own fucking arms and devastating my own family, we stop the demo rats. Fucking lunatics.
It's hard to exist.
It really fucking is.
It really is.
I hate these fucking people. God damn it.
All right. In other news, Denmark, not known as a military superpower, but they are worried about Trump's comments about annexing Greenland. So they have approved and implemented a military package for Greenland. Greenland is a protectorate of Denmark. So they're moving military. Denmark is moving their military into Greenland to defend from us. That is fucked up.
It's crazy.
That means that they don't think it's just bluster.
Yeah. I want to see what Canada is going to do in response to this too, because he's made the same threats against Canada.
Canada should cut off trade. They really should.
They've said they're going to.
They should.
Yeah, I absolutely
cut off lumber, cut off oil, cut off everything.
Yeah, oil. That's going to be a big one because we get a massive amount of oil through Canada.
I'm going to make fun of Canada later, though.
Oh, God, no.
In the odds and ends.
Oh, boy.
But not politically, not about politics.
Okay.
Okay, so we talked about this already, but at the inauguration, the flags are going to be at half staff, and that is because we lost Jimmy Carter.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people probably don't. I was born when Jimmy Carter was president. I was not of age to understand what presidents do at any point while he was president, but he was president when I was born. He was the 39th president. He was the last one-term Democrat, by the way, before Biden.
Mm.
Actually, there's only been one-term Republican since then, too, right? Just Bush.
Bush Sr.
Yeah. That was true of Trump until it wasn't. Anyway, what he's most known for. If you ask people that are older what you know Jimmy Carter for, they'll say that he didn't do anything about the energy crisis. And what the energy crisis is, in 1979, there was a revolution in Iran, and OPEC oil production plummeted. And you can, if you Google any of this, you'll see videos of people waiting in long lines.
The gas lines. Yep.
To get gas. And it was rationed, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My parents lived through that. I was one. So I don't really remember that. But anyway, at any rate, that wasn't really Carter's fault that Iran had a revolution and OPEC cut production. And it was the last year of his presidency. So he didn't have much time to do anything about it.
Yeah.
But that's what people know him for. That's his reputation as a president. It's a poor reputation.
Yeah.
It's because of that. But he did do some other things. He was very pro-civil rights. He opposed segregation. He promoted civil rights globally. But
he is
yeah, go ahead.
He is the only president we've ever had that has advocated vocally and directly for the people of Gaza and the people of the West Bank and against Israel.
True.
Look how that turned out for him.
Yeah. Oh, and didn't the Israeli prime minister that made that deal with him get assassinated?
Yeah. Well, Yitzhak Rabin.
No, it was Begin.
Menachem Begin was Egyptian, wasn't he? I thought he was the Egyptian prime minister. Hold on. Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin were involved in.
Rabin got assassinated for sure.
Yitzhak, that was during Clinton. Yeah, Menachem Begin was prime minister of Israel. You're right. And it was Anwar Sadat that was the president of Egypt during those peace accords.
Yeah, the Camp David Accords. Those
1978. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, but he also Republicans probably hate him for this, but he signed the bills into law that created the Department of Education and the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy it's actually a huge department now. It handles all of our nuclear stuff, in addition to our oil policy and everything like that.
Yeah. I will point out, because this is just a point of fact, that Carter in his administration was the engineer of the Community Reinvestment Act, which is, by anybody who watched the housing bubble break in 2008, 9, 10, 11, whenever that was, where the housing market crashed, the Community Reinvestment Act was the genesis of the failure of the housing market. And it had to do with low interest loans and banks lending to people who couldn't afford to be borrowing money. And it led to the housing bubble. I mean, it's a fact.
So Carter might have started that, but Clinton's the one who let him give loans to people with no money at all.
Yes. Yep.
That was Clinton. But yeah. So anyway, he got trounced by Reagan in the 1980 election, partly because there were American hostages in Iran that were taken as part of the revolution. And we found out recently, like within the last couple of years, that Carter had a deal to get the hostages released, but Reagan intervened and said, don't release the hostages until after I'm inaugurated so that I can take credit for it.
Yeah, I remember.
Like, we didn't know that for years.
Yeah.
That came out recently.
Yep.
For years, it was believed that Reagan negotiated their release, but it wasn't. It was
And related to the Iranian hostages, Carter did try to engineer a rescue attempt that failed miserably. It was absolutely terrible.
Helicopters crashed right on the way.
Helicopters, yeah, they weren't designed to manage the conditions of the desert. They engineered AC-130s with rocket-assisted takeoff and rocket-assisted landings that were supposed to land in an Iranian soccer field where the hostages would be brought to. Those aircraft never really worked, and there were some disasters in the engineering of those. My anecdotal story is that in my previous career, when I was a addictions counselor up in Vermont, one of the patients that I worked with was one of the surviving military members from that rescue attempt. And he was at that point in his late 40s, early 50s. And his PTSD and his trauma from that experience were profound. This guy the stories he told of that rescue attempt were fucking unbelievable. It was absolutely devastating to listen to. Tangentially, that hostage rescue attempt for the Iranian hostages was the genesis of the branch of the military that I currently work for and support, AFSOC, Air Force Special Operations Command. That is where AFSOC originated, was through the engineering of that rescue attempt, and it became its own branch of the military. Not branch, but segment of the military. So, yeah.
Well, anyway, after getting beaten by Reagan, he started the Carter Foundation, and this is what I know him from. I mean, he's been involved heavily in global affairs for decades, and occasionally, like if an American was imprisoned unjustly in some foreign country, they'd send Carter to go negotiate his release.
Yep.
He worked for the UN. What do I want to say? Observing elections in fledgling democracies to make sure they were fair and democratic.
Mm-hmm.
He did that many times.
Yeah.
Plus, he was heavily involved with Habitat for Humanity, which if you don't know what that is, they build homes for underprivileged people in the United States. And he would occasionally show up on TV news segments, literally with a hammer, building the homes.
He did this into his
90s.
late 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did nothing but good things for other people after his presidency, up to the point of his death. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to criticize about Jimmy Carter in the last 40 years that carries any weight. He was a good man. He did good things. He was selfless, and there will never be certainly never be another president like him. I wager to say there won't be another human being like him.
Yeah. I mean, I put a note on here that I was thinking about all the presidents since him, and I think he was the last president that was ethical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And that's why I think he died. I mean, he was 100 years old, but he didn't want to live through another Trump presidency, Trump being our least ethical president ever.
And frankly, with his passing at the time that he passed is the greatest fuck you to Trump there could be, because of Trump's now got his fucking undies in a twist about the flags. He said the flags are going to be at half mast. First of all, that's a term that's only relevant to ships at sea. The half mast. The flags are going to be at half staff. You fucking idiot. And he's all upset about it.
I think that's a common mistake, but okay.
I don't know. I'm not letting anything slide these days. I'll call anybody up on it.
All right. Well, anyway, yeah. So Trump is big mad about that. He said it's a disgrace. Well, that's policy. When a president dies, the flags fly at half staff for a certain period of time afterwards.
I had said earlier in the podcast.
Unfortunately, it's going to happen when Trump dies too. Yeah.
I had said earlier in the podcast that Trump's January 19th rally, some MAGA fuck is going to take over one of the flagpoles in Washington and raise the flag. I think also what's going to happen is they're going to try to outnumber the American flags with MAGA flags flying as high as they can. They're going to, everything's awful.
All right. The last thing of import I got, and this is just something I saw. Russia is said to have lost 430,000 troops in Ukraine just in 2024.
Wow.
And for some perspective on that, United States casualties in all 19 years of the Vietnam War, including soldiers who died in accidents, non-hostile accidents, or from diseases over in theater, was only 58,000. And the total U.S. casualties in World War II were only 416,000. And Russia lost more than that just in 2024. But they're not stopping. What I think about, 58,000 people died in Vietnam, and I wasn't alive then, but from what I know about it, the people thought that was too many.
Yeah.
And that's why we pulled out, because people got sick of seeing those dead soldiers come home.
But do the Russian people know this? That's the thing. I mean,
they would certainly know that their son didn't come home.
Yeah.
Or their nephew.
And there's a half million bodies. Where are they? Where are they being buried? Are they brought home, or are they just left to? I think they're, for the most part, they're left to rot in the fields in Ukraine. My prediction for the next 2 years, Russia is going to collapse. Putin will no longer be. Russia is going to collapse, and whatever comes next.
They are on the verge of economic collapse right now. The whatchamacallits, the embargoes and whatnot on them that all of Europe has and the entire West has, they're starting to have some real effects on the Russian economy. So that is what we already talked about it in the United States. That is what gets people to rise up, is when they can't afford to house and feed themselves. So that could very well happen.
Before the end of 2026, Putin will no longer be in office. And
I also know, unless Putin dies, that war is not ending.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm implying, is that Putin is going to reach room temperature.
All right, odds and ends. You told me that you used to raise seahorses, and I want to know about that. What is that like?
It's challenging.
Hard, because keeping saltwater fish alive is. I've bred guppies before, but that's fucking easy. Those things would breeze in a mud puddle
and survive.
Yeah, that is easy. I had way more than I knew what to do with.
It's challenging. It's satisfying because so I've raised two different kinds of seahorses. I've raised dwarf seahorses and I've raised what are called giant seahorses. I had a 90-gallon tank when I lived up in Vermont, and I had giant seahorses in there. If you have the conditions right, they will thrive and they will reproduce. And one of the most fascinating things about seahorses is the males carry the babies. The female deposits, or the female deposits her eggs into the male's pouch where they're fertilized, and then the male gives birth to the babies. It's one of the coolest fucking things ever. They have personality. They're fucking amazing to watch. They're expensive as fuck, and they only eat live food. So you have to be prepared for all that. But my lease is renewing next month, and as long as they don't fuck me over on what they're going to do with my lease, I might get back into that as a hobby. I've been debating it. So there you go.
All right. Now, I said I was going to make fun of Canada. Here it comes.
Uh-oh.
There's a hockey tournament going on. If you're a hockey fan in the United States, you probably already know about this, maybe. But if you're a Canadian, you absolutely know about this. It's the World Juniors hockey tournament. So I used to work for we have a Ontario Hockey League team here. The Canadian Hockey League is a junior league. It's players 16 to 21. And it's very popular in Canada. We have a team here in Erie. And it's a huge deal. And it is players from those teams that are playing in an international tournament. And it's annual. The United States is the defending champ. They play it all over the world, different host countries every year. This year, it's hosted by Canada. So you can imagine the Canadian fans were really expecting Canada to do well. The United States is the defending gold medal champions. We won it last year. Well, the gold medal game is today, and it's the United States versus Finland. No Canada. Why? Well, first, what happened in the group play? In group play, and the United States and Canada were in the same group. Another team that was in that group was Latvia. Latvia beat Canada. And the Canadian fans were whining about that on social media. Then the United States beat Canada in the next game pretty handily. And then in the quarterfinals, Czechia beat Canada.
Holy shit.
And knocked them out of the tournament.
Jesus.
And watching Canadians cry about hockey is one of my favorite pastimes. So if you go on TikTok, you can find Canadian hockey fans whining about everything about that. So I love it because most Americans don't give a shit, but Canadians very much give a shit.
Oh yeah, I love their passion for hockey. When I lived up in Vermont, the Montreal Habs were the team, and the Canadian fans were just the absolute best. I fucking loved their fervor for it. Side note regarding, I think it was Finland. Do you remember the Olympics back in the 80s where it was called the shot heard around the world, where the United States got into the finals?
Heard around the world was not from the Olympics. It was a Miracle on Ice.
Miracle on Ice. That's what it was.
Yeah. 1980, Lake Placid.
But that whole thing wasn't the United States beating the Russian team. It was the fact, I think it was the fact that either Finland or Norway beat Russia, and somehow that got the United States into the finals. It wasn't Russia beating, or United States beating Russia in that.
No, it very much was the United States beating the Soviet Union. Very much. It wasn't the gold medal game. Yeah, but it was the semifinals. the United States beat the Soviet Union in the semifinals, and then Finland awaited the United States in the finals, and the United States beat them too.
Really?
So the gold medal game was the United States and Finland, which is the same gold medal game from the World Juniors.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, that the gold medal game wasn't the United States v. Russia. It was in the semifinals. Okay.
That's true. It was a semifinal.
Yeah,
they did not win the gold medal in that game. That was the semifinal. But it was a big deal that a bunch of college kids, because back then we didn't send professionals to the Olympics. So that was a bunch of college kids that beat very professional hockey players from the Soviet Union. They were undefeated. They were undefeated, and that was a pretty big deal.
I have
another thing that was a big deal about that back then. It happened in the afternoon, and nobody knew. It didn't get broadcast on TV until the evening, and it was a replay. It had already happened.
Oh, wow!
So like people might have known, but there was no internet. You know, you heard things from the newspaper the next day in most cases.
How the fuck did we survive?
I don't know.
I can't even imagine not having immediate access to information. It's like, but I lived during a time when we didn't have immediate access to information. I don't know how we did it.
One other thing I'll talk about, Apple TV is free this weekend. We probably won't have this posted in time for that to help anybody, but I used to have Apple TV, so it was like reminding me of shows I started watching, and one was Severance, which I had watched like a few episodes but hadn't finished it. I finished it this morning. That's a fucking good show.
I have it downloaded. I haven't watched it yet.
The second season starts in a couple weeks. So, and the first season ends on a cliffhanger. So I can't wait to watch the next episode of the second season. But yeah, that's a good show.
Yeah,
it's
I do.
Weird.
I have.
It's very weird.
Yeah,
but it's good.
I'm midway through a series called The Killing that I recommended to you. The first 2 seasons are about a specific story. Third season is now on a different story. It is so fucking good.
I just want to make sure it's the right one, because I did look it up, but it's a crime drama. It's detectives investigating crime.
Yes.
Okay.
It reminds me of True Detective season 1. That's the only season of True Detective that's worth a shit. That True Detective,
that's the only one I've watched.
Yeah, True Detective season 1 is like one of the most vital pieces of television, ranking right up there with Sons of Anarchy and Breaking Bad and everything else. It is so good. Even though I hate Woody Harrelson, I can't stand Woody Harrelson, but I want to be Rust Cole. I want to be Matthew McConaughey. I know it's too late. Whatever. Yeah, so I'm.
Squid Game yet?
Huh?
Did you watch Squid Game yet?
I started and I couldn't. It just couldn't hold my attention for some reason. I got to go back and watch season 1 to see if the English overdub is so over the top, like it feels like it is with season 2. I only got like halfway through the first episode.
I wouldn't know because I watch it with subtitles. I don't do dubs. But
maybe that's what I did with season 1. I don't know. I may have.
The only problem is you can't multitask. I like to multitask when I'm watching stuff. Can't do that if you got to read all the subtitles.
Yeah.
But I did manage to find enough time, and it got enough of my attention that I sat there and watched the whole thing in one day. It's like 7 hours. I watched the whole thing, well, maybe 2 days, but I watched the whole thing.
Don't ruin it for me.
I won't. I'll say it's good. It also ends on a cliffhanger. So,
well, then that implies a third season.
Oh, there's definitely a third season. It's already filmed, and it's coming out in June. I think they definitely confirmed it's coming out in 2025. So it's coming out this year.
Okay.
It's already filmed. It's coming out this year, and I think the expectation is probably June, but it could be December, just like this one.
I have a movie on deck that I downloaded. I saw the trailer for it, and it looked really good. It's called The Order. I haven't watched it yet. I'm going to watch it. I got a couple days off this weekend. I'm going to watch it this weekend. It looks really good. It has to do with a white supremacist cult and other shit, but it's called The Order. Look it up. I think it's good.
All right. Well, I need something to do today.
There you go.
Silo, also on Apple TV, and I had accidentally gotten French dubs. So I watched the first 3 episodes, and then I put on episode 4, and it was a French dub, which I don't speak French, so that didn't work. And then I found out Apple TV was going to be free, so I was like, oh, I'll just watch it when that's free. And I watched like half of the 4th episode, and it's boring. I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, it really was. So you haven't gotten past the 4th episode? Because we're up to episode 8.
Through it.
Yeah, we're up to episode 8, and I felt the same thing that you're feeling up to that point. It's picked back up. It's gotten better. So
when it's just her and I don't know, what's that, a guy from That Thing You Do? Is that Steve Zahn? Steve Zahn? Is that who that is? That's
the guy that's in the other silo that she winds up going to? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think it's Steve Zahn, but I'm not sure. I didn't IMDb that. Just sounds like him. But when it's just the two of them, I'm not like, I don't know. I'm not feeling it.
Yeah. Well, that's where like episodes 7 and 8 come back to the other silo and deal with who's the guy that plays the president that's over there? I can't think of his name. But anyway, it gets much more into the history and starts to reveal things that finally make it more interesting. But yeah.
I had a coworker that said she read the books and that the books were really good. So maybe that's an avenue to go through. I didn't even know there were books. I'm going to read the books about 3 Body Problem in case. I don't know if we ever talked about that, but that was really good.
Oh yeah.
But if Netflix doesn't make a 2nd season of that, be prepared to read the books because there are books.
I might just jump to the audiobooks then. I didn't know they existed. Then another series that I have stuck with, and people are going to have mixed feelings about this because it's Taylor Sheridan that does this series, and he did Yellowstone. He's a fucking dickweed. But Landman with Billy Bob Thornton, it's about the oil business and such, and it takes great liberties with the oil business. Mr. Global has talked about and debunked a lot of stuff that they show in the series, but the series is good. I recommend it. I love Billy Bob Thornton.
All right.
Oh, your dog's at the door. He's got to go potty.
Yeah, probably.
Hey, Baxter.
Or just wants to see who walked by in the last couple hours since we've been out there last. I don't know. It's cold out there, though. I'll let him go out there by himself. I don't put a leash on him. I just open the door and say, go ahead. And he doesn't get off the porch. He just goes out there and just stands on the porch and looks at me like, what?
Yeah, my dog's the same way. I'm going to get a sweater for my dog because it's getting cold and she doesn't have the fur to deal with it. So I need to get her a sweater.
Now he's tapping his paw on my leg.
There he is. He's a good boy. That's how we wrap every podcast is with your dog.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
All right, dude. So we will see you in another week, and we'll.
Yep. See you next week. We'll bring you all the other things. We'll record 2 more episodes before the inauguration, or maybe we should delay that other one until after the inauguration. So we'll have 1 more episode before inauguration.
What day of the week is the inauguration?
Well, it's on the 20th, so 2 weeks from today would be the 19th.
Yeah, our next podcast would be on the day of Trump's rally.
That's when we would record it, but maybe we should record it a couple days late.
I think we should. Try to record it on Tuesday morning, the 21st. Do you work from home on Tuesdays?
I do not.
Shit. We'll figure it out. We'll map it out. Anyway, we'll see y'all in a week.
Yep.
All right. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.